Hello everyone and welcome to All You Can Eat with Matt. So today we are going to be making dinner rolls. So what you'll need is flour, butter, milk, whole milk of course, sugar, salt, highly active yeast, and I'll talk about the yeast in a few and I'll show you the package, 2 eggs and more sugar. The sugar is going to be divided because I'll show you in a few what we're going to do with both sugars. So I'm taking my milk, wait for it, okay, and my butter, and I'm going to heat this up until it reaches 115 to 120 degrees because we need our yeast to rise, and our yeast rises in warm water around these temperatures. When your milk has finally reached 115 to 120 degrees, you're finally ready to activate your yeast. I know by dipping my finger in about the temperature. So now I'm just adding 1 tablespoon of sugar and 2 teaspoons of salt. And I'm adding sugar and salt before I add the yeast because these two ingredients help activate the yeast because the yeast feeds off of them. So make sure to not skip this step because it won't rise. So as you can see, after 5 minutes, the yeast is fully activated. It has risen and is also foamy, as you can see. So now I'm just using my half moon whisk, and I'm just gonna combine it, like just whisk it until it's well combined throughout the milk. And then I'm going to add in my 2 eggs that are at room temperature. And I'm just gonna whisk it in. As you can see, the yolks aren't getting combined, just please make sure they do. So now I'm just going to add my sugar to my milk mixture, and I'm just showing you the package of yeast. It's called active dry yeast, and it's just 1/4 ounce package, and it's from Fleshman's, whatever, however you pronounce that, just so you get an idea of what yeast looks like. So now that I have my wet ingredients combined, I'm going to add my flour to a large bowl. If you're doing this by hand or if you're using a hand mixer, make sure you get a huge bowl, because then if you don't, it's gonna be a big mess because you have to combine the wet and dry ingredients, and then you have to work the gluten, which takes 8 to 10 minutes if you're using a hand mixer or a stand mixer, but it can take 10 to 20 minutes if you're using your hands. So basically, if you're doing this by hand, it's going to take about double the time compared to a hand and stand mixer. I'm just using my hand mixer here because I was lucky enough that it came with dough hook attachments, so it'll be easier. As you can see, it is kind of harder to use a hand mixer to combine the ingredients because the dough gets really tough, but it's possible. It's gonna take a while though. So as you can see, I'm just combining it, and I'm just gonna keep combining it. Even though it is kind of already combined, I'm still gonna be mixing it for about 10 minutes until it's well smooth. And I just wanted to show you, if you're doing it by hand, this is like an idea of how you would knead the dough. Many people have their ways of kneading the dough. Sorry, it's like a tongue twister. Sorry about my phone. Anyways, many people have different ways of kneading dough, but this is just to get an idea. So you would do this for 10 to 15 minutes until the dough is smooth. And you just keep continuing. And make sure to use a little flour if it starts to stick. Don't use so much because it will make the dinner rolls very tough. Now that my dough is smooth, I'm just patting it down just to show you that it's like bouncy. And I'm using a Ziploc bag, an oiled Ziploc bag, to make my life easier instead of dirtying a bowl. So I'm just taking my ball of dough, and I'm putting it in an oiled Ziploc bag. Please use an oil that doesn't have flavor. What I mean is use canola, corn, vegetable, sunflower seed oil. Do not use olive oil because it wouldn't give such a good flavor to the dough. It would just mess it up. So just use a neutral oil. And I'm just going to put it in a warm place for an hour and 30 minutes, up to 2 hours. Now that my dough has risen like about double in volume, I'm going to take it out onto a floured surface. Not really. Yeah. It's just lightly floured, not like heavily floured with flour. So it's lightly floured surface because you don't want to add so much flour because it makes the dough tough. So just use a little. It shouldn't stick. My dough didn't stick at all. If you use a little flour, it shouldn't stick at all. So there's no need to add so much flour because this dough is very forgiving. And as you can see, it's not sticking to my hands at all. And I'm just using a huge knife to cut it into like logs. This is how I roll out my dinner rolls. Like this is how I make them. I cut the I cut the ball of dough and I just work it like that. Like with my hands. I don't know. I do something weird. It may look weird. I know. But that's how they come out as perfect little balls. And then you put it into your pan. I know it looks kind of wrong. But that's how I do them. See, you can see it's a smooth ball. That's how I do them. And I know they don't have to be perfect, but this recipe makes about 25 small balls depending on the size, because you can make up to 16 depending on the size. So it varies, 16 to 25 balls of dough. It just depends how you do it. So now I'm adding egg whites. I'm sorry about that. With 1 tablespoon of water. The egg whites make it golden brown, like the top gets golden brown because the egg whites cook in the oven and they give it like a nice color. So don't skip this step. And this is the finished product. Now I'm just taking melted butter and I'm smothering it all over those breads. It looks so good. Make sure you do this right when they come out of the oven because it really makes a difference. Because if it gets cold, it won't be as good with melted butter on top. So make sure they are right out of the oven. See how good it looks? So I'm just breaking into it, and you see how fluffy it is. This is how you know the dough has risen because it's very fluffy and the yeast has activated. So thank you guys for watching. Hope you enjoyed.